My main objective, baby, is to get to you. Turn your mind around. I know it takes time, but you know I can wait now. You're on my mind. You are in my system. I just want you to know that. Oh, you are in my system. Got me burning, burning, baby. You are in my system. I just want you to know that. Oh, you are. You're in my system. I keep on pushing, baby. You're in my soul. Let's have control. Just can't get enough of your loving touch. Oh, baby, you are in my system. I just want you to know that. Oh, you are. You're in my system. Got me burning on fire, baby. You're in my system.
Back here tonight with me, your host, Valentine St. Aubin. This is Esoteric Discussions here on Peterborough FM, and we are live. It's Wednesday night, and tonight I'm joined by a very special guest, Andy Lloyd, who's the author of Darkstar. Before I bring him on, I just want to make a correction of myself because I didn't give out the right website address for Edge Media. I believe it's emtvonline.co.uk, and that should take you to their website so you can check them out. Okay, so we're going to move along. So tonight, as I said, I'm joined by a very good guest. You know, he's a brilliant artist. I've checked out some of his artwork, and he's got many talents. But he is the author of a publication that he wrote quite a few years ago now, back in 2005, called Darkstar, The Planet X Evidence. And he's gone on and he's written two fictional novels as well. So he's got quite a lot of talent, and I think you're going to enjoy what he's got to say tonight about his own research on Planet X and what he makes of all of this. So I'm just going to bring him on and open up his mic. Andy, are you there?
Yeah, hi Valentine.
Hello there. Thank you for joining me tonight. I'm really looking forward to talking to you. One of the things that I like about your work is that you have the scientific side of yourself, but you also have this creative side as well. And I think that's very important in where we are, where we're trying to go. Like you, I mean, I have a scientific side to myself that I enjoy as well, but I'm not limited by that. I can also expand into other areas and explore my creativity as well. So it's nice to connect with other people who are on that same kind of wavelength. So I just want to, for the audience, because not everybody, listening to tonight might be aware of your work or even aware exactly what Planet X is. They might have heard this, they might have heard that. So let's just take it back from the beginning. Let's talk about your first book that you wrote, Darkstar. And it's very interesting because, I mean, how did you begin to research this subject? Because it's not really something that everybody's going to just fall into, let's say.
I got into it because I became very interested in ufology in general, UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
I was a scientist. I did a degree in chemistry, and I was actually on a PhD program out in California. And I, like you were saying, really enjoyed doing science, but I have this very, very creative edge to me. I was out in California, I had long hair. I was, a bit unusual really for a scientist, and I started to pick through their library just about anything I could get hold of that was weird and wonderful to generate sort of interesting ideas very creatively, and work through stacks of books on the UFO subject. And eventually I came across one by a guy called Alan Alford, who was he was the first person I read who seriously discuss the subject of Planet X, and I'd not really come across it that much before. And because of my scientific background, I kind of clued right into it to try and figure out whether there was some possible reality to the idea of another planet in our solar system. Because it seems on the face of it that, scientists, have figured out that there's 9 planets or 8 planets, depending on how you want to define it. And most people would think, well, that's it then. They've sorted it, and we're talking about star systems in other galaxies now. But in actual fact, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Planets, when they are quite far away from the sun, are very, very difficult to spot. In actual fact, you don't have to go much further than Pluto for things to start to get quite murky out there. So it became an interesting subject to me, and through reading his book, I got onto Zecharia Sitchin, who is a similar kind of guy to Eric von Daniken. I mean, most people have heard of von Daniken.
I know von Daniken very well. Mm-hmm.
And Sitchin was the same sort of field insofar as he was looking at the question of whether we'd been visited in the past by extraterrestrials, and whether they'd left not just a sort of a calling card, but had actually, he was going a bit further than the von Daniken, and really sculptured our entire race and species and ancient civilizations. And this was like really far out stuff, really.
Yeah.
So I really, really enjoy getting into that, and my scientific mind sort of, I can park that for a little while as you would sort of explore the creative side of it, but it's always niggling in the background, and it was trying to get me to say, well, if these guys were from Planet X, how would that work? And that's how I got onto Darkstar.
I mean, it's all of this is very interesting. I mean, I'm an amateur astrologer. I'm not a professional astrologer, but astrology obviously is connected with astronomy. They used to be connected up until about 100 years ago, and then a division was finally sort of brought in because it was seen as something not suitable for the scientific community, although scientists had used it in the past. But what's always interesting is the way that in the scientific community and how they interact with the public, they always make it seem as if, outer space is empty. You've got these few planets that circle around the sun that everybody knows about. We all learn that in school, but yet most people would say that space is kind of empty, and that's completely far from the truth, because there's a lot going on up there, in the stars. There's a lot of movement. There's so much going on, and there's so many other bodies that astronomers are always finding. I just lose track of all the different bodies that they've listed here and there. I mean, they found Sedna recently. They found, well, we can put Chiron out there. It's an asteroid. Eris as well. I mean, there's so much. And, it's trying to get people to open up their minds, at least even just to that much, to say, listen, we have a solar system here. I know science says we have A, B, and C, but what if I was to tell you there could be D, E, and F as well?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? And I think that's what's good about your work. And I know a bit about it. I know that you began to write this. Well, you wrote the book probably before 2005, but brought it out in 2005. And in a sense, we're here now in 2011, and it seems like people are now more ready for that type of work. How do you feel about that?
We go through phases with the Planet X subject. Historically, it goes back over 100 years, and in fact, the planet Pluto was discovered because astronomers were looking for what they call Planet X even back then. Mm-hmm. They believed it to be a very, very large body, sort of another gas giant, that was mucking about with the orbits of the outer planets. And from that speculation, they, were looking through plates of background stars to try and find some little bit of movement that would, show that something was close at hand. And they eventually found Pluto. Now, at the time, Pluto was seen as a new planet, but it's very, very small. And as you've rightly just pointed out, in the last 20 years or so, there has been an explosion in discovery of planets very similar to Pluto, and such that when you start to sort of get 50, 100 Plutos, that are all sort of in this belt that's beyond Neptune called the Kuiper Belt, astronomers start to look at Pluto and say, well, there's nothing special about this. This is just the first one of a number of these dwarf planets that we've discovered. So they eventually took the measure of saying, okay, actually we're going to just not stop calling Pluto a proper planet. But the concept of something beyond that that's actually really big. I mean, I'm talking about something the size of Jupiter. Now, Jupiter's the biggest planet in the solar system. It's very, very large, very, very heavy gravitational field. And if you see it in the sky, even though it's 5 times further away from the sun than our planet, it's actually still one of the brightest stars in the sky at certain points. So it's an immense planet. And I'm talking about something of that proportion, but that's lying an extremely large distance away. And the concepts I've come across is that the moons of this planet are capable of being warmed by it such that they could have life. And this, for me, is the exciting part of it, because in the 70s, people were, up to about the 70s, people were very excited about the possibility of finding life in the solar system. Mm-hmm. And people used to talk about, potentially there'd be alien civilizations on Venus, and aliens and Martians in War of the Worlds and all that kind of stuff.
Well, if you listen to like Michio Kaku, who's been around for quite some time, they have descriptions that they've categorized, what an advanced civilization would be like, and they compare it to us, and we're sort of really down low on the totem pole,
Quite so. And so, but the science, sort of Victorian science, which was sort of growing up quickly back in the 60s and 70s, the idea of, well, there's life everywhere. The Victorians were great. They thought, they were really, really open-minded, the Victorians, and they thought there was just, they were great. There's great science fiction written during that time because they were really open to the idea of finding aliens in other worlds. And then what happened was NASA started, and the Russians and so on, started sending out probes out to Mars and out to Venus, and they just found these sort of dead rocks, and Venus was completely uninhabitable. It's like a sort of pressure cooker on the surface. I mean, melting lead and all that kind of stuff. No way there could be life on Venus. So that scorched that. And then Mars turned out to be this sort of very, very cold body that wasn't really sort of habitable, just about maybe in certain places. And I think now they're just starting to find liquid water that could be, the precursor to finding life on Mars. But science still says, look, there's nothing intelligent there. The face on Mars thing, that's nothing. That's just a sort of looking at a rock mesa from a funny angle or something.
Well, that's what NASA wants to say.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, the jury's out on that, in my opinion.
Exactly.
But there's some dodgy stuff that goes on with that. So so anyway, the problem was that back then in the 70s, these sort of results came back, and it was all like, oh right, well, there's another planet gone, there's another planet gone, there's another planet gone. They're all dead. There is nothing going on. It's only life on Earth. And for about 20 or 30 years, that was absolutely the concrete opinion throughout the scientific community. That's it. Solar system-wise, there might be life outside in the rest of the galaxy. We haven't found it yet, but solar system-wise, there's nothing going on. Now, whether you accept that or not, because, as you say, there could be stuff going on Mars. There's some very weird things happened with, Phobos and so on, the moon there,
yes.
that gives the possibility that there is some kind of presence there of some form. The Darkstar idea, beyond sort of creating this new potential planet out there that might cause a lot of effects in the solar system that remain unexplained, beyond that, it actually creates the potential for having a habitable world where other beings might live and be up there looking at us. So, in that way, you wouldn't have to envisage, say, UFOs coming to visit this planet from very, very distant solar systems or other galaxies even. They have really just got a very short hop to get here. It's really just not very far at all. They're on our doorstep. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the sort of reasons I wrote the book, because I wanted to put forward this idea that, all is not lost. The solar system could yet have a planet that remains to be discovered. And if it's there, we're really actually sort of on the cusp of it. But to go back to your other question about the sort of timing of this and the fact that there's a lot of interest building in the Planet X subject at the moment, it does come in waves. And pre-1999, there was a lot of concern about the millennium, and the Y2K and so on. And there were a lot of people even then thinking, there could be some kind of catastrophic event coming from space.
Yes.